I did this with kid A. Kid B, it's not working. What's going on? What's wrong with kid B? Early on, the kids are basically, you just need to make them survive, right? It's not complicated, even if it's hard.
Right.
You told me once, you are not hiding anything. Everybody always knows how you're feeling. And I'm like, really? You're like, yeah.
Hello. So I'm Tony Cooper, host of the Dad Manual podcast, and I am here with one of my favorite dads, Jeff. Will you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jeff, and I'm a great dad, and I'm here to share some wisdom.
Yeah, yes, you are. I was thinking about our conversation. So, Jeff, you and I have known each other for 15 years. That's when I moved my family to Davis, and you were living in Davis with your family, and our girls were in the same second grade class together, but I wasn't that involved. I don't know if you weren't that involved, but we met right at the end of second grade. It was May. We were at a party. I don't know whose house it was, but we were singing karaoke together, and we're like, fuck, this is a cool guy. Yeah. And we're like, this is a cool guy. And we were became friends. And then you moved to Santa Barbara 6 weeks later.
Yeah, it felt fast. Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty quick, right? Which means we've been friends for 15 years, but have lived in the same place for 2 months in being friends. And yet we have this very long friendship. It's really unique for me because we keep in touch. We see each other. We visited you in Santa Barbara. You visit us when you're up here. We've gone and hung out in the city together. And I was just thinking about our conversation today and just how much I appreciate you. And this is such a good friendship because there's nothing forcing it to be together in any sort of convenient way. And so I just appreciate you and really appreciate you taking the time to be here. And I know that this is not an easy thing for you to do, to be able to have conversations. If it were a one-on-one, it would, but you were telling me you having some feelings about this, and I just thought it'd be good to start with those.
Yeah. Well, first, the feeling is mutual. I've always felt like a good connection with you and love talking with you. And you're right, though. I'd like to talk about serious issues and being dad and life issues with my friends and people I know, but doing it publicly is a different space. But I do think it's important and big advocate of it. So here I am.
Yeah. Courage.
Yeah.
I really haven't mentioned this part so far on any of the podcasts, but it is not a conversation that dads really even have to the level that we're going to talk about being a dad, and certainly not sharing in any sort of way. And I actually think that's a problem. I just think society would be a whole lot better if we did. And so if this podcast is doing anything, encouraging these kind of conversations between people, then we're making an impact.
Yeah, I agree. I think I've got some really good friends that are great dads. They go through things and I don't even know about it because they don't share. And understandably, we don't always want to share the times we're going through really hard things, or we have self-doubt, or we know we messed up, which happens a lot. But then I've got other friends that they do. So I do think that it's really important, and I'm really glad you're doing the podcast. And I definitely have some friends that are younger or newer dads that I will be telling about the podcast to
Awesome.
listen in.
Great. Well, let's just start by telling me about your kids.
So I've got 3 kids, great kids. Isaac and Xavier, they're twins, and they are 26 now. And a daughter, Mila, who same age, roughly, right, as Olivia, and she'll be 23 in February.
Right. You're the first one I've spoken with so far who has twins. It's funny because my brother has twins, but he had it the reverse order. He had his first daughter, and then about, I think it was 18 months later, 2 months later, he had 2 more girls at the same time. Wow. He called me up and told me that, and before I even thought about it came out of my mouth, I was like, wow, that's the worst of all possible scenarios. Because I've been through it. You have your first kid, it's a lot. And then you have your second kid and you're like, what did I think was so hard about having one kid? But what was it like having 2 right out the bat? Plus you and Natalie were young. How old were you when Isaac and Xavier were born?
I was 23. Okay. Found out on opening day of baseball, right after I'd graduated UCLA, that we were going to have kids. Well, of course, at the time I thought it was 1 kid.
Right.
And the boys were born in November. So I believe probably around May or June, we found out it was going to be twins. And first
Uh-huh.
reaction, I remember telling my mom, and she was like, "Oh my God, what are you going to do?" Lots of confidence from mom there. But again, I was 22 at the time.
Right. I mean, it's Mila's age.
Yeah, exactly. And I turned 23 right before the boys were born. The focus right then was grow up fast, get a job, because I had just graduated college. So I didn't have a job. It was during recession.
Yeah.
So this is 1999.
Oof.
Somehow got a job down in Gardena, and me and Natalie moved in an apartment together in August. And then at that point, we were just kind of excited because we finally had a job, had some security. But yeah, it was hard. I think I don't remember the first year too much because sleep deprivation and working a lot. I was working 2 jobs, and Natalie was doing everything all the time.
Right.
So
Right.
it was a lot of just survive and try to not mess anything up,
Right.
while also learning how to just live as an adult on your own,
Right.
pay the
Simultaneous.
bills. Yeah, budget. Like, we didn't have a lot of money. It's not like I was making tons of money coming out of college. But I think about it fondly. Like, I don't have specific memories, but I remember being happy.
Yeah.
Just loved the boys so much. And it was just amazing to have a family and to feel like there was something bigger than work or whatever in life.
Yeah, you're right. Like all the adult stuff happened at the exact same time. Wow.
Exact same time. And for context, I was an English major, so not
Useful.
not not a great career path exactly. Nothing like very direct there. I graduated in March, so it was opening day. At that time, I was thinking I had a job waiting tables. I'm like, I'm just gonna wait tables for a while and find a job and have fun. And I
Yeah.
lived in LA. I'm like, I can make some cash and survive off waiting tables. There's no rush.
Yeah.
Turns out there was a rush. But it didn't take long to just reset
Right.
the brain. I mean, knowing that there's going to be 2,
Right.
and then Natalie needing to depend on me as well, and I depended on her, it absolutely changed who I was very, very fast.
Yeah. And so, like, who was the new Jeff that started becoming present?
That's a great question. I think it was very focused. I was very focused on do the right things to make sure you're fulfilling your responsibilities.
Mm.
Not too ambitious for good or bad. It was get a job, do the job, don't lose the job at first.
Right.
Help out with the kids, make sure they're safe. And I think the other thing was like figure out how to be content, knowing that I'm going to be working 7 days a week for who knows how long. And I'm shifting to having to not see friends very often and everything like that. But it was a realization that you can be content doing pretty much anything as long as you figure out how. I knew life was not going to be easy as soon as we had kids, like easy being at that time, but I wasn't going to spend my life being unhappy.
I experienced you that way. And I think that, I don't know if that existed before you had kids, but that feels like a good definition of you at your core level. And you guys are in LA, so I know your families are up here in Northern California, so no support.
I had one of my sisters lived there for the first couple of years, I think, when the boys were born, and she was really, really helpful. Yeah. And we had a couple friends, from college that would still help. But mostly, yeah, we were on their own because everyone had their own jobs and doing things. And LA is pretty spread out.
Right.
So we spent a lot of time together when we could. But again, I was working 7 days a week, commuting on the weekends for restaurant jobs and stuff. It was hard.
Yeah. The other thing that happens when you have a kid is your relationship with your significant other changes immediately. You go into like, what are our roles? We're in survival mode. Who's going to do what? You have to operate more like a business, like functionally effective, efficient, because there's not a lot of time. Nobody knows what they're doing. There is not a lot of resources. And so, you're in a true startup, like a startup organization. Did you and Natalie know each other in high school?
We met when I was in junior college. She's a couple of years younger.
Okay.
At that point, we had been dating and together for 5 years. Yeah. She moved down to LA a year after I did. So we've been together for a long time, but this was our first time living together. Alone. It was learning a lot of that. And, like anything, we come from very different families and how we do things. And of course, I went straight to oh, we're having kids. Well, this is what we did as a family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she went to, well, this is either like what she thinks or what her family did and what made sense. And I definitely drove her crazy for quite a while.
You just had different ideas about what you're supposed to do, and we don't know what we're doing, so we're just basing it on our own upbringing. Okay.
Yeah, and also I think we were talking about this earlier, and I definitely had like a lot of control instincts on, well, this is how it needs to be done because this is how like my parents did it. Whether it's like how clean something was or how
Mm.
organized something was, those kinds of things.
Look, that's got to be 1,000% accurate for every single couple, no matter
Mm.
what. And
Yeah.
so much of parenting is that we just inherited our ideas about it. We
Yeah.
didn't really develop our ideas about it. But then if you guys had the same upbringing and had the same instincts and delivered the same way, you'd be like, yeah, we're killing it, even though you still don't know what you're doing. But I'm imagining in 100% of the situations, there's conflict. And so it's either an opportunity for you to go, oh, what do we want as a couple? Or it's an opportunity to just be fighting with each other and battling against each other. And so, what was that period like? And how did you get to the place where you're like, we have our ideas about parenting?
It took years, I think, many years, because, Natalie also, she was a little younger than I was even. And so we're both forming as adults still. What do we know now? That the frontal lobe doesn't form until you're 26. Like
Oh,
you can't
okay.
make executive decisions
Huh.
as well because your brain isn't fully formed until you're 26. So you're
Right.
impulsive. I wouldn't say we were emotionally immature, but I would say we weren't as mature as we could have been.
You got mature fast, though.
Got mature fast, but then the stress and the everything. So we were great most of the time, but there was definitely a lot of friction, and I learned over the years, like, kind of hard headed and took a long time. I could have done a lot better sooner.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of the things when you look back on it and you go, man, I did not need to be wasting that much time or suffering in it. I could have learned that faster. What comes up?
I think mostly just listen to her and remember that what you think, just because you think it's logical and all makes sense, doesn't mean it's the right thing or the only thing or necessary. You got to
Uh-huh.
just let go a lot of that stuff.
Right.
Early on, the kids are basically, you just need to make them survive, right? Like it's not complicated, even if it's hard.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think that mostly that time is about you reorganizing your life and what you need to understand can be accomplished. I've had some friends that had kids recently. I was like, you can't get as much done during the day, and that's okay. Doing nothing while your kid is sitting there, like, staring at the sky is fine,
Yeah.
but it's not normal in our society, and it's not normal
Huh.
for most people when they have kids because they're used to like doing a lot of stuff or needing to be productive.
Productive.
You
Yeah.
have to be productive. Felt a huge urgency to be productive all the time when I was at home because I was gone all the time.
Right.
And you need to sleep at some point.
Yeah.
But mostly it's the cliche things like, don't sweat the small stuff. But
Also, what you're saying, it's interesting because I get the drive to be productive. I mean, that's how our society measures our value. But there's short-term productive. There's the stuff that I'm accomplishing right now that's going to produce some sort of immediate result. And then there's the long-term productive, meaning what I'm hearing you talk about, which is investing my time and my attention into my kids, because that's a long-term productive thing. Like you really start to understand who they are once they're gone,
yeah.
like in their 20s. You can definitely connect the things that you're doing early on with who they become. I hadn't thought about that, but that's interesting. The society's need for immediate short-term productivity is essentially battling against this parental instinct to just be there and be present with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It doesn't really change, right? Like when the kids are 5 or 8 or 10, you're still like trying to maximize time somehow, some
Right.
way, but it's
Right.
not what they need.
All right. So when we become dads, those ideas of what being a dad is were formed in our life, either by our dads or parents or other influences. What was it like? What was it like in your home, your relationship with your dad? What about it did you emulate and want to bring forward? What about it was just like, I wanted to avoid that part? Like, what were those thoughts as you were becoming a dad?
I was close to my dad, and I still am. I used to tell people my dad is like one of the smartest people I know.
Yeah.
And smart in that I felt like he was a good communicator. He knew a lot about different things, paid attention. Not like smart like the dad that could build stuff. He knows that's not him. But I think in just like thinking through life and how to live a responsible life
Yeah.
and be considerate and things like that, I learned a lot from him. He was always good at kind of forcing conversations with me, which I didn't always love.
Like
Um,
I'm doing to you right now.
like you're doing to me now, but they were good. His dad, they didn't have like a bad relationship, but older than us, different generation than us, and so they
Yeah.
didn't talk about a lot of stuff. And I think his parents divorced when he was like at a kind of pivotal stage, and
Mm.
his stepdad, there's some tension there. When I thought about it, I thought he did a really amazing job considering he didn't even have somebody like him that I had.
Yeah.
And so early on, I used to talk to him all the time,
Yeah.
about stuff. Again, when they're young, you're just like surviving. Definitely, like as they started getting older, talking to him about stuff. And I think the thing I always wanted with my boys and then Mila was being able to talk to each other and communicate a lot. And I would say now probably I did it too much sometimes, still do. That's why I have to listen to my wife more often. But I think that is the fundamental thing. And then the things that probably go overlooked in a lot of households. I know somebody now who's like, I just heard that like they don't really say I love you. Their parents don't. My dad was always affectionate, told us he loved him. Our mom too. Even for her is a big deal because my mom's Korean, and Korean culture that isn't necessarily a thing back then
Right.
to express
Right.
affection. But it was something that was built in me and was super important. So I've always told my kids I love them, show them affection,
Yeah.
joke around with them. My dad was really good at that, just
Mm.
being silly.
Yeah.
So those things I think I've tried to carry over, and I think they've been important, especially when you go through hard times or things are difficult or you have major tension with you and a kid. You can still tell them you love them, and they still know that because you've been telling them for 26 years. And I
Yeah.
think that goes a long way when you're maybe not on the same page or there's some fighting and things.
Well, the fact that you push for a lot of communication doesn't surprise me. It's what you do for a living too.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
it's
true.
embedded in you. What does that mean when you're like sometimes too much? Because I think the idea of establishing open communication is incredible. And kids are going to be like, I had a guest on earlier, my friend Adam, who's like, yeah, it's like 1,000 little conversations rather than as adults, we like to have these big dialogues, but kids just don't have the capacity to be able to take that in. So is that what you meant, like too much, or?
Sometimes, yeah, I think Mila will say like, "Oh, are we getting a monologue now?" Uh, and I'm like, "Well, maybe. Let's see how it
If
goes."
you're lucky.
Yeah, I think I do tend to do that sometimes. I'll wait and wait, and then I'm like, "Here we go. I'm gonna spill it all out." So that isn't good technique. But also, I think that I will force conversations when I feel like it's something that's really important that they hear now, rather than assessing, well, is it good for them to hear it now? And
Hmm.
what do they need to hear? What will be useful versus what it is that I want to say?
Mm,
What do I want to share versus what
right.
do they need to hear?
Ah,
What's most useful for them to hear? Because
right.
I'm an emotional person
Yeah.
and pretty passionate person. You told me once, like, you are not hiding anything. Everybody always knows how you're feeling. And I'm like, really? You're like, yeah, yeah. Like, okay. And so I think I'm not as patient as I should be, and I am not as smart as I should be sometimes when I think about what I need to talk to them about or how I need to talk to about them or how much. And what I've learned, and it took me way too long, is to listen to Natalie because she is, first of all, she's just an amazing person and spent some of her professional career as an educator.
Right.
And she became that kind of by default, as like that was a good job for her to have because we had kids. But she's an intellectual and she's an academic, so she studied and she knew how to do this, and so she spent a lot of time understanding like how to get through to children,
Right.
including our own. I would always kind of, well, like, I know you're smarter than me, but this is what I think feels good. But she's much better at, if you think about these conversations, as like doing double Dutch jump rope,
Okay.
knowing when to jump in. and how
Ah,
long to stay jumping and then get out before you just tumble over all the ropes and fall down.
that's a really good metaphor. Her approach is much more of an intellectual, much more analytical, and yours more feeling based, more experiential. In the analogy of like, when do I jump in? There's the, okay, I'm looking at the rotation of the rope. I can see like, here's an opening, here's an opening. That doesn't get you in there. It's the feeling part of like, jump now. And
Right.
so it's a real combination of the two. And I'm imagining you guys aren't alone in terms of parenting. I'm sure many couples fit that same mold of like, one's more of an analytical and one's more of a feeling based. And then when you go, all right, well, we have a difference in opinion about something, like backing it up so that the other person understands or that you can get somewhere in the conversation is probably pretty difficult.
It is, because sometimes I want to talk about something and she's like, I don't think you should do that. I'm like, but I think
Mhm.
I should. And she's like,
Yeah.
well, go for it and see how that works out. Like, I think it's a very cliche thing again that you need to parent together and communicate together if you are married and you're raising the kids together.
Yeah.
But I think recognition that an opposing or different view needs to be factored in.
Uh-huh.
That what's in your brain, whether it's logical and rational as you think it is, like I can make an argument why it makes sense. Doesn't matter because people are not just rational beings. And I think Natalie has a really good sense for the kids' feelings, and she's very good at understanding what might be helpful and what isn't. And I tend to get in the conversation and be very logical and rational about something and
Mhm.
want to lay out an argument. Again, English major, communications professional, you have to lay an argument out, then you can convince somebody.
Right, right. Which is more of the like, be a good talker, be a good communicator, as opposed to be a good listener, pay attention to what the other person needs, like come from that place.
And let them get there and be
Mhm.
effective. Be an effective communicator is different than being a good talker.
That's true.
It's something I'm still learning.
Yeah. If people say I'm not learning that anymore, like I've already got it, they're probably a terrible communicator. I always love when people are like, no, 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 I already know all that. I've transformed. I've done all the growth. I'm like, oh, okay, buddy. I don't want to be in a relationship with you. So, in having a number of these conversations, especially early on, you relied a lot on Natalie's instincts around this because when any of us have kids, especially men, I mean, most of us have no idea what we're doing. And even though, like you said, it's kind of simple, like they have a couple of basic needs, right? Make sure they're fed, make sure their diapers changed, make sure they get sleep, have activities, whatever. They also, before they're communicating in language in ways that we can understand, they're communicating through crying or through having a fit or like something's going wrong with them. You have no idea what's going on. And I've heard so many men go like, thank God my wife is there because they have all these maternal instincts. And then I've talked to women about that and they're like, we don't know what the fuck we're doing either. And I was thought it's so interesting how
Well, I want to clarify that she had the right instincts. I didn't listen. And I didn't
we
really,
got that, Jeff.
it took a long time. So I want to be clear.
Yeah.
Natalie will listen. I know I didn't listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And then look, I mean, when you have one kid, you know what you're doing. But when you have two kids at the same time, you clearly know you don't know what you're doing. Yeah.
I think that was hard, but super useful because if you have more than one kid,
Mm-hmm.
not twins, just more than one kid, and you do, and a lot of people do, it takes you a while to figure out, I think, that I did this with kid A, kid B, it's not working. What's going on? Like, what's
Yeah.
wrong with kid B? Something's wrong with them.
Yeah.
But with twins, you find out quickly. I mean, they're genetically as close as they can be, pretty
Right.
much.
Right.
You get to see in real time how you're doing the same thing to the two kids that are the same age, going through the same experience. There's no
Right.
like older, younger kid thing,
Right.
and they're different. So you have to parent different. And I think that's something that if you have multiple kids, but I guess even if you have one, you can't just parent. This is the way to parent. You have to adjust to the individual.
Right.
And it's just very, very instructive, I think.
Early on, you have Isaac, you have Xavier. Like you said, they're, as identical as they could possibly be. And yet there's something different about them.
The thing that I remember the most was Isaac really wanted when he was, let's say, 4, 5, 6, something like that. He needed to know what the rundown of the day was going to be.
Mm.
I mean, it took us a while to figure this out, but if let's say we just went on about a day, like, weekend day. All right, it's noon. We're going to go do this. He's like, what? I don't want to do that. And then we have to like do the normal things you do with your toddler. But if you wake up and let him know, okay, here's what the day's going to look like, then he'll be like, okay, all right. He knows what to expect. He's not really fighting it.
Yeah.
Xavier was just like, all right, whatever. You know, or,
Yeah.
I think Xavier was more of an extrovert. Isaac was more of an introvert, that kind of thing. What kind of motivated them as they got older? Xavier is more naturally attracted to sports and interested in sports. Isaac was really into history, could care less about sports.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think their motivations, what affected them, what didn't, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. All right. So second kid comes or third kid comes along, or like 3-4 years later, something like that.
Yeah, 3.5 eventually. Yeah.
What was that like? Like, what was different for you when Mila was born?
Well, I was working in my second job. I got a different job. It was my first job at a communications agency. Still didn't have much money, and I was still working 7 days a week, but it was a little more comfortable. Like, all right, we're going to make rent. We can eat. I remember when she told me, I can picture it. And I'm like, oh, well, of course you're pregnant. Why not? But from my standpoint, it was easy because when you have twins, somebody's awake all the time.
Right.
And you have to be doing stuff. When we had Mila at night, if Mila would wake up, there was nothing for me to do if she didn't need her diaper changed. I'd just go back to sleep. Mila was a relatively easy child, and unfortunately for Natalie, she only wanted Natalie. So I think it was just more of the same for me, just working, and trying to do the right thing and help out and stuff like that. I think it was hard for the boys, and like I don't know if we figured it out right away. I don't know if they even knew she existed until she was like 4. They didn't even acknowledge it.
Well, because twins are in their own world with each other. Is that what you mean? Okay.
They're in their own world. And then she didn't really start talking until she was like 2.5. And then she kept talking.
Yeah.
But
she made everybody listen.
Yeah. It was just like they did their thing, and she was like, oh, well, I'll do my thing. And they didn't interact a ton.
Yeah.
But we really tried to be very conscientious about making sure every kid knew they were loved individually and not grouping them. And
how'd you do that?
Well, we didn't dress the twins alike.
Yeah. They wouldn't have liked that anyway.
And we tried to, give them different kinds of gifts and things like that. But I wouldn't say we necessarily succeeded. I mean, we were both very busy, and Natalie was going back to school, and it's not like I could take one kid and spend time with one kid. You're always with all the kids.
Right. And one of the things that I think is useful to look for is what are the little things actually that make a big difference. So you're right. One of you has all 3 kids. It's not like you can pull them apart in any sort of way, but there are little things like what are things you remember, like little moments that you knew you landed that message of like, I love you for you, not because you're one of my kids.
Man, I don't know. I'm like trying to think about it. I mean, I think individually it's usually when they're going through some hard time or something.
So it's easier to just be there for them because they're the topic.
Yeah. I've always seen and loved them for who they are, I think, and not who they aren't. I'd love to hear what they'd say. I don't think we really compared them to each other. Right. But they probably think we did. I mean, it's kind of natural. I think we try to be cognizant of we've got 2 boys and a younger daughter. Daughter happens to be like the only daughter on this side of the family too.
Oh wow.
So I imagine the boys probably feel like, I don't know if you did that, Dad. But I think showing up to the kids when they have a moment that clearly they're proud of and really embracing that is something that I always try to do. And we had them do different things. Like Isaac was like, I don't know about sports. So we got him into other stuff, and made sure we supported that stuff, whether it's like building Legos or history or whatever. Xavier really likes sports, try to be into sports. Mila was kind of in between in lots of stuff. I think understanding that you've got to let them lead the way and you've got to support them. Something that I wished I would have done much, much better is kind of let go and let them learn their own lesson and not worry about, well, they're going to regret this, so I'm going to do blank.
Mm-hmm.
especially as they get into junior high and high school. I think before then, it's kind of straightforward. I mean, again,
Right.
not that I did it all well, but it's a little straightforward, right? Like, oh, you
Yeah.
want your kid active, you want your kid doing well in school and making friends and being a good
Mhm.
person.
Mhm.
Junior high and high school starts getting trickier because then you're starting to think, well, this is a formative experience, or this is going to help you later in life, or this is that. And they're like, I just don't want to do it.
Right. Right.
Those are tough moments, especially when you literally know what is best for
No,
them,
no.
except for you don't know what the lesson is that they're going to get out of it, or what they'll miss out on. Like, we're focused on what they'll miss out on, but like, I guess there's the whole, what will they get out of it? Is this the right thing that will shape them? But it's hard. I got to tell you, the only time I really drew the line was when Olivia was in middle school, I guess, and social media started and she started posting some stuff online. I was like, I brought down the hammer on that. And it was because I was like, it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Like, once you put something on the internet, it doesn't go away. And, we always got along really well, but that was definitely one of those battles that I just fought. And, I was like, I don't mind being the asshole right now.
Right.
Because I am fighting for something in the future that you don't know is going to happen, and it's going to be bad. And some bad shit happened, actually, and not that too distant future from there. Even though she took everything down,
Right.
someone still got hold of it and did a weird ransom thing. It was really messed up. And so, like, the expression is like, pick your battles for sure.
But you got to pick them.
Yeah.
There's battles that you have to have.
Because you can have them all day, every day.
I totally get you. There's moments where I will look back and say, yeah, brought the hammer down, not budging on this, and we're going to talk about it until and we're going to do it. And it's the hardest thing, right, is to discern what those are. And I think, again, like, maybe if I were to rewind, listening a little more to Natalie, or maybe even talking to other people, talking to their dads and saying, hey, look, here's what I'm feeling. What do you think? Because an outside perspective is often quite useful. I'll tell you one example is, I think it was probably ninth grade. Xavier was playing basketball a lot, playing club basketball, and then playing on the high school team, freshman, and he was frustrated and just want to quit. And I was like, I don't think you should quit, man. Xavier's very smart. I remember he even uttered the phrase, I was like, well, why do you want to quit? So I'm like, take a walk. Let's go. Why do you want to quit? He's like, I just lost my love for the game. And I was like, oh my God, that's like a canned answer from ESPN. Like, you are very smart, but you're not manipulating me.
Yeah.
And I knew he wanted to quit because he was frustrated, and he also just wanted to play more video games.
Right.
And at that time especially, I was like, hey, I like video games too, but you're not sitting around playing video games. But he was passionate about it, and he really enjoyed it, and he wasn't having fun at basketball. So I was very hard-headed about it. We had multiple conversations, and eventually, of course, he was like, I'm done. I'm like, okay, fine. Because I was like, well, you got to finish this out, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
In retrospect, should have just let him walk away whenever he wanted, because you cannot force a kid to love something or like it. And really, was basketball that important? This wasn't about basketball to me. It was about working hard, finishing something you started. It was about, you can really get a lot out of this team sport, even if you're not a star or not playing as much as you want, and you can see yourself getting better. And of course, I'm projecting, right? Like, these are the things I think are important and things that I wished maybe I had done more.
Right.
But it wasn't going to help. And I didn't see it. We had a lot of tension over that.
Yeah, because I think parents do that. Parents put their own dissatisfaction or things from their life. I saw that, man, with Little League. That was crazy how many dads got so aggro. And I'm like, clearly, like, your sports career did not end well, and now you need your kid to pick up the torch is a terrible situation. They're supposed to out there have fun. And there's also, like, the establishing of values and principles. And so, what I heard in there was, like, there's a principle that matters that you want to impart upon your kids called something like commitment. Like, what were some of the values and principles you really did seek to establish with your kids?
Integrity and honesty and work ethic are really core to who I am, like, to this day. In fact, I've had someone say, like, I'm too black and white sometimes. But I think that either from looking at my parents who both worked really hard. My mom's an immigrant and worked, like, did amazing things to forge a life in this country. My dad was in the Army and kind of refashioned his career after he got out of the Army through a lot of hard work. It's not that I love working, but I think that working hard can get you a lot of places. And I've tried to really push that with my kids. And honesty, I cannot stand dishonesty.
Yeah.
So I try to teach the kids that and model that. But, sometimes I wasn't really calibrated with where they were in life and trying to teach them a lesson that maybe wasn't fair to try to teach them at that time,
Yeah.
holding them to a standard or an expectation that didn't make sense. We always have this phrase, especially in marketing and communications, meet somebody where they are.
Mm.
Well, I could recognize generally where somebody was, where my kids were, but I didn't recognize where I could get them in a short amount of time. I thought I could get them from here to all the way over there.
Right.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
People take lots of time to do that. And I think that's another thing that I wish I would have learned a lot faster is like, okay, if this is where they are, where can you actually get them? And how do you do that? In what amount of time?
Right.
And you learn that with the kid. Yeah.
You learn that with the kid, but in terms of how much you care about them and your own emotional state of being, if you're stressed about work and stuff like that, which I definitely carried in, or you're dealing, you're in a work environment and you're like, everyone's go, 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 blah, 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 blah. And then you get home and you're trying to do the same thing. Like, no, it's not the same.
Yeah.
So I think those things are really, really important. And I think my kids know that about me.
Yeah.
I hope they respect it. They're all good kids. So
they're great kids. You have great kids, which may or may not have anything to do with your parenting, but you have great kids.
Yeah.
As you're talking it through, I'm just sort of reliving like being a dad, and being a dad is a constant opportunity to fuck up.
Yeah.
Constant. It's easy to like be the kind of dad that wants to make your kids wrong along the way. And I think there's a huge opportunity of noticing what you just said. Like, I didn't meet you where you were. I was trying to force a situation that was more about me than you. Like, these are moments that really establish trust in a relationship with your kid. Like, how did you account for with them those moments where you screwed up, where you didn't do it right, or you were pushing too hard? How did you approach that?
I've apologized to my kids like thousands of times. One of the things that I did a lot, which I supremely regret, is just raise my voice, yell, be angry.
Yeah.
And I would always apologize. Now, I don't know how effective that is for them, but I wasn't going to walk around and pretend like it didn't happen. So if I did something wrong, or even if I wasn't sure, but just felt like the repercussions, I would tell them exactly, hey, I'm sorry, this is what I did, it wasn't about you, or this is what I should have done or what I shouldn't have done, and blah, blah, blah. Because I think that that's the other principle. People are going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
And you're going to make a mistake. But when you make a mistake, you need to be upfront about it. And then, I'd say, let's move on, hug them. And, I learned some of that from my dad too. I'm very vulnerable with my kids. I mean, I will tell them when I screw up all the time. I'll tell them when I screw up, it has nothing to do with them. Yeah. Because if you go through life and think, you got to be perfect or that other people should be perfect, it's a really destructive, hard place to be. I think we all want our kids to just be content and feel loved, but also have the principles and things that we talked about to be a good citizen in the world.
Yeah.
And so I'd say, I'm sorry, a lot. I'll probably have to say it this week. Who knows? Week's not over. It's Wednesday. But something else I was going to tell you is while the kids were in high school, particularly with Xavier and this basketball thing, at some point I realized Natalie's like, maybe to you it's about a principle, but what it's become is him versus you. And I'm like, okay. So from then on, I started thinking about the analogy, as I love basketball.
Yeah.
If you're playing defense in the post, you often pull the chair out against somebody, because if they're pushing up against you and you back away, then they'll fall down. So I'm like, I got to pull the chair out. So I'm not even in this picture. I can't be like part of the picture. I think we have a very good relationship and he knows I love him and everything. And we did a lot together and had a lot of fun. But at some point I'm like, this can't be about me. Basketball isn't about me. Nothing is about me. This is just about you. And so I often try to do that still now. If it seems like it's about me or him, like, no, it's not about me. I'm fine. This is about you and what you want for your life, particularly as I get older.
Yeah. That's a great one. That's a great one. Jeff, we're going to start wrapping this up. This has been so great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I've just enjoyed this. Time's just flown by. Last thing, what's some advice or piece of advice you would give to a brand new father?
The first is, if you're married and have a partner, that relationship is more important than anything. I remember somebody asking me, like, what are you most proud of? And I was like 25, 26. And this was like a 20-year-old asking me at the restaurant I was working at. And I'm like, what's my relationship with my wife? And she's like, not being a dad? I'm like, no. Because the relationship with your partner, if you do have a partner and you're raising your kids together, is the foundation for everything. You got to be strong together. You got to enjoy each other, and you have to be content. The other thing is that you got to let go of the control. Sure, when they're young, but take the emotion out of it. Talk to your kids without emotion when it comes to something hard. When it comes to something good, show them all the love, but don't celebrate everything either. You and I we both sports dads, and I was always very careful, I think, not to celebrate the great moments too much, because then they think that's all that matters. Don't over celebrate if they're young and they get a hit in a baseball game or game-winning bucket. Just say, hey, that was nice. I'm happy for you. Because if you go crazy over that, then the times when they fail, they're looking at you. They think they're trying to make you happy. It needs to be about them. And what they want and what interests them, and them learning the lessons, and you trying to be as even keeled as possible. Try to be even keeled with them in the hard moments that you're trying to teach them a lesson. And sometimes even in the moments they do great. Show them love, of course, appreciate it.
Yeah, that's a good distinction. Like, when they do something well, notice and acknowledge their accomplishment, but don't make it about approval.
Yeah.
Because then if they're only doing it for your approval, they're doing it for very much the wrong reasons.
Yeah. And that's just not how life works, right?
Right.
They need to know you love them and you saw it and you're happy for them. Yeah. But you should be just as happy and excited to see them when it's time to eat dinner.
Yeah. Awesome. It's a great place for us to knock off. Jeff, I've absolutely loved our conversation. Love you, brother.
Love you too.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And until next time.
All right, Tony.
Hey, bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Dad Manual Podcast. If you liked it, please leave us a rating or subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you really liked it, please share it with a dad you love. I'm looking to grow a community of fathers who are ready to change the world, and I need your help to do that. And if you got questions or topics you want me to explore, email them to me at thedadmanual@gmail.com. I would love to answer your questions on our next episode. Until next time, I'm Tony Cooper, and this is the Dad Manual Podcast.